12:04 in the afternoon here on 90.3 FM. It's Wednesday. That means it's Joe Steckler Day, helping seniors of Brevard. And here's the host of the show, Joe Steckler. Hi, Joe.
Hi, John, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of Helping Seniors on WEJF 90.3 FM on your dial. Folks, we have a doctor of holistic medicine with us today, and if you want to call and ask a question, all you have to do is dial 722-9998, 722-9998, and that's a 321 number. But, you know, each week we have a sort of an anchor that anchors the show with me, and then Kerry comes in most of the time to help out. But you know, I can take and put together a radio show, and at the last minute, depending if we have a change in guest, it changes the whole complexity of the show, and you find out things that you didn't even really know that you wanted to talk about, but you realize that so many of these things affect seniors. And the reason I say it is because, heck, I'm a senior myself, and I know what I think about some of these things, and I try to be honest. I try to figure out which of these things can help me. And when somebody asks you what your pain level is on a 1 to 10, you say, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5. And at other times, heck, it's more than a 10. It's more. It's almost like something you just can't like stand. It hurts like hell is what it is, and you just don't know how you're going to contain it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I got a couple other things we want to talk about, but I'd like to welcome my two guests today. Of course, I don't know if I'll call Kerry a guest. He's here, but
I'm here.
He's here. That's Dr. Kerry Fink, who is, and I always forget to call him. He's a doctor also. He's a PhD, and I appreciate what Kerry brings to the show because he has so many different things, because he's been on radio before, he's television, he travels all over the world, and so there's so many things that he sees that I don't see. But our main guest this morning is Dr. Kevin Kilday, and Dr. Kevin Kilday is a doctor of holistic medicine, and I'd just like for you, Dr. Kilday, to talk to our audience today, and the people sitting behind the glass in front of us here, and Kerry, myself, what really is holistic medicine? How does it complement or take the place of medicine where you inject? But it can, holistic medicine, as the way I understand it, you don't inject into the body like they do with regular medicine. Am I correct or not?
Well, again, hello, and thanks for having me today, Joe, and Dr. Kerry. Thank you very much. But yes, they do. You're talking about injecting IV, like medicine does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they do. They also do that. With holistic supplements, like for instance, with the treatment of cancer, they do use a very high dose of vitamin C, and they do that with IV therapy, and there are some other supplements also that are done with IV. But unless you're an MD, that's about the only way that you can really do the high dose of supplements and herbs, via IV therapy. But getting back to your original question, I mean, holistic health or holistic medicine, it's really based upon treating the whole body. I mean, holistic comes from the word whole, WHOLE, and it just means like the whole body, the mind, the body, and the spirit. The doctors of today, traditional MDs, in most cases, I mean, unless they're in psychiatry, but most traditional internal medicine doctors or orthopedic doctors or whatever have you. They're treating the physical part of the body, and it's very important. If someone comes into like an orthopedic office with with a bad knee or something like that, yes, they may operate, they may go through some physical therapy, but just like with with cancer, you really have to have a good mental attitude that you can beat this, that you can you're gonna do this therapy, and you're going to fight this pain and this physical ailment and get back to normal. Now, also spiritually, if you have a relationship with in my case with Jesus Christ, but if you have a relationship with a God of your choice or a higher power, as you may call it, that's very important too, because sometimes a patient might be in so much pain and so much distress over having maybe a terminal illness or multiple broken bones from an accident or something. Sometimes they get into a point where they want to give up, and unless they're talking with somebody to deal with that, sometimes when you're alone, and the only the only way to get relief is talking to your God or your higher power or Jesus.
Okay, Kerry, I'm sure what Kevin has said has probably triggered some comment from you. What's running through your mind now? Because I know your background and what you do, and your thoughts on higher powers and how they affect the mind and the body.
Well, I believe first of all that we were created in a way that allows us to do a lot of healing ourselves, because it is the way we were designed and created. You think about it. If you get a cut, it learns how to heal itself as we move along. And a lot of times what my take is on what Dr. Kevin Kilday and the Holistic Health Center is all about is it goes back to a thought process of, if there are things that are naturally created that will be remedies for certain situations. I remember hearing, I don't know if it's true or not, you may be able to comment, but aspirin it comes from a bark or something like that.
Yes, it comes from an herbal plant called feverfew.
Right. And so my point is, there are lots of, all the things that we find are there in nature, and they're designed to help us. So what I remember, for example, was we had this talk when Dr. Kevin was a guest some time back, and we were talking about even things like acupuncture and some Chinese medicines or different things like that. These are things that have been tested for thousands of years. Now, the reason, at least, I'm not a medical professional, but from the outside looking in, I understand why a lot of times a medical professional will question this, because they say, well, they haven't had the clinical trials, so we can't be sure that A caused B or whatever the case is. But for those of us who do, believe in a higher authority, then we understand that, that these things can be adjusted through the mechanisms that in our case that we believe God gives to us. So I think, and I have seen firsthand, people who have been written off by a medical system who says, oh, here's a terminal diagnosis, this is all this is going to amount to, and you've got this much time, go and prepare your final arrangements. Well, I have a friend of mine who just lost an uncle, and I said to him, this was this past week, he traveled up to Kentucky to be there for his homegoing. And he said, when he texted me that, says, I'm going to be in Kentucky next week. I'm so sorry to hear that. He goes, no, don't be. It's sad. But he said, 8 years ago, they gave him 6 months to live. Wow. So because he stepped out onto his faith and onto some holistic medicine thing, it really expanded. And the guy he was an elder gentleman to begin with, so it wasn't like, somebody cut in the prime of life. But it was interesting that medically he'd been diagnosed to have 6 months, but the Lord gave him 8 years.
Well, I mean, that's common. I mean, I know of a pastor who had started it's actually a diet cancer program, and I was blessed to see him speak a couple times, and he's like in his 80s now, but when he was in his 40s, he was diagnosed with terminal colon cancer, and they told him to get his affairs in order. So he developed this vegetarian type diet, and it's I really don't want to mention the name. I don't have any sponsorship with them or anything, but it's a very good a diet, and it's and he's like I said, he's still alive, and he's in his 80s.
Well, it's a funny thing because we were just at the doctor. My wife was just having her regular routine checkup, and so what does the doctor say? What would be good for you, because we want your cholesterol to be right, and we want your blood pressure to be right, and all these different things. And so what he ends up handing us is this thing called the Mediterranean diet. And so when you start to look at it, what is really the recommendation in the Mediterranean diet? It's really a lot of natural, less processed, less artificial, and more, if you will, back to what God gave us in the earth to work with, which is my perception. Going back to Joe, the question you asked is what about holistic medicine? I think it's got to have answers, and probably the answer is science just hasn't unlocked, and maybe gets confused sometimes, which part is working and which part is still to be proven to work.
Right. Well, without a bad mouth in the pharmaceutical industry, they just don't like alternative medicine. The reason being is, even though a lot of drugs on the market today are derived in a lot of cases from herbs, but the problem is, they just can't take, an herb like curcumin, which is a very good, and thousands of clinical studies on it, but they can't take that and just market it, as a drug.
Well, it's not patentable, right?
Right, it's not patentable. Yeah, so they, so they just have, an attitude towards, alternative medicine. But, slowly, there are medical doctors out there that are taking on what they call functional medicine or integrative medicine, which means they're combining, their MD, training. Along with alternative medicine, but they're very few and far between.
There's one thing that I think we keep beating around the bush about and not talking about, and and in my reading about holistic medicine, I think that when you talk about the psychiatric portion of it, you're really talking about the power of prayer.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I think that.
But I don't mean to interrupt, but there are also, one of the top selling, pharmaceutical drugs today, when you're talking about, mental disorders, for depression and anxiety and things like that, one of the top selling prescription drugs today are like Prozac and Lexapro and things like, and drugs like that. They're called or SRIs, and but in the herbal field or alternative medicine field, there are a number of herbs that have been clinically studied, even against like Prozac. They had a side-by-side study with Prozac, and the natural medicine outperformed Prozac.
But you don't hear about this.
No.
It's just like nobody will question why there are only 4 pharmaceutical companies that produce insulin, and that the only place insulin is made is in the United States. And they got a tremendous control in that market, which ends up costing all of us so much more for medicine. But I go back to the question that what I interjected. Many, many years ago, I had a rabbi that was on my radio show quite often. And we talked about praying to God for certain things, and we were having a lot of dry spells, and and some people were praying for more rain, and
Right.
The rabbi said, "Be careful what you pray for."
Right.
And because we don't often think about what it is, and when we have, I'll just go out and say it. Sometimes I hurt so bad that if you're going to judge it on a 1 to 10, it's more than a 10. I can't hardly stand it, and I'll say some of my prayers. And so many times, while the pain is not completely gone, it lessens.
Amen.
And other times it doesn't. And I think sometimes whoever we pray to gives us the strength to combat what it is we're feeling at the moment. And you said in the practice of holistic medicine, the state of mind has a lot to do with whether or not certain drugs and everything will work or not. And I think it's important for all of us to realize we're talking here on a Christian network, and so many of the people understand what it is when we're talking about the power of God and the power of medicine. And I want to throw one more thing into this, and I'm sure a lot of you listeners have heard of a product on the market called Juice Plus. And my daughter happens to be someone that's got an early start in the company, and she's been with them a long time, and she's after me all the time to do these things, and I've tried it. I confess that I probably haven't been as religious about taking these things on as often as I should, but I think it goes back to whether it's Juice Plus, whether it's going to a holistic doctor, whether it's trying to figure out the power of nutrition and how it affects the body. I think, Dr. Kilday, I think anything that we do that tries to help our state of mind and our body to work together, that I think that's probably more what holistic medicine is about.
That's what holistic medicine is about. It's really,
but you feel free to, if I say something, look, you disagree, you go ahead and say it. You disagree.
Well, I thought you said it's not what holistic medicine's about, but I was saying, that's what is holistic medicine is about, is the, like I said, it's let's call it a balance. It's a balance of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I'll give you an example of of how the mind should work. Let's say in the treatment of cancer. Okay. Now, when I'm talking to a client, I have them in front of me. One of the things I ask them is, how do you feel about being diagnosed with cancer? Because what I'm looking for is their mental attitude. If they start saying, well, my life is over, I'm terminal, I'm gone, that's bad, because now they're starting to approach clinical depression. Okay. Now, one of the things that I do in my cancer program is, what's very important is cancer can't live in an oxygen environment. So we try to increase the oxygen by some very mild exercise if the client is well enough, or some other devices like pulse electromagnetic frequency therapy increases oxygen. However, though, if a person is depressed, they have found that a clinically depressed client or patient takes in 30% less oxygen.
Wow.
So I can believe
it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
They have to get that. And even their mental attitude. They have to come out and say, I can beat this. I can fight this. I'm going to beat this. My life is not over until Almighty God says it's over. That's very important. Then I started telling them, well, there are some supplements that will help that. They're all natural. It won't interfere with anything else that you're taking.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. And Kerry, feel free to comment, but I think people that have been diagnosed with cancer, if they truly fight it, you may not completely be cured, but I have seen people go through agony in order to live, to be with their families. But they have, I think, one man who had throat cancer, and the poor man was burned so badly with the treatments that it just caused him agony. But he lived for years, and he fought his way through that. And I think it's so important when we start talking about this that I'm glad Dr. Kilday is here, because there are ways to look at how we view our body and what we can make our body do it and what we can't make it do.
Yeah.
What would you, Kerry?
Well, I was just going to comment. I think the term holistic medicine is kind of answers its call right there, because we laugh a lot of times. We'll see a pharmaceutical commercial on TV, and Tammy and I will sit there, and by the time the commercial's over listing the side effects, we're probably like, maybe it's okay to have the disease to start with when you hear, and they always have pretty pictures and nice music, but this could cause death. And I'm thinking, well, that would be a bad side effect from taking that medicine.
Right.
On the other hand, what I do understand is when you talk about holistic medicine, Joe, this goes back to the point that you were just making, is that holistic means everything is included. So like Dr. Kevin is talking about, it has to do with what's going on in your mind. It's also what's going on in your body. What are the natural things that we can do that help it basically fortify its own defenses? And then that's not necessarily in conflict. Tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but it's not necessarily in conflict with a medical prescription that may go in hand with all that.
Right. I mean, as far as what I do is, if someone is on medication, before I would recommend, any supplements whatsoever, may it be a vitamin or a mineral or an herb, I always check for a contraindication, to make sure there's no, there's no interference between the two drugs.
Right.
Really the drugs that are most problematic with supplements across the board, unfortunately, are blood thinners. Mm-hmm. For some reason, well, there's a lot of reasons, but if someone's on blood thinners, you just got to be very careful about taking supplements. Mm-hmm.
What did you say now? You got, the supplements affect blood thinners?
Right. I'm saying as far as taking prescription medicines and taking supplements, in most cases, there's really there's no contraindications. There's no conflict between the two. But it seems like when it comes to blood thinners, really across the board, blood thinners, do have a contraindication with supplements.
Which leads back to a very basic thing when we talk about medicine, doctor, is that whether we're going to a holistic doctor or whether we're going to a medical doctor, we have to tell each of the other doctors exactly what you're doing. You have a right to know every medication that they're taking, and because it helps you and you're making your diagnosis. Right.
It's really very important that, if you are taking multiple medicines, to really check your especially if you're seeing a couple of different doctors. In most cases, the doctors are all communicating with each other now through internet and a lot of different ways. They communicate with each other very well. But sometimes you have a Dr. A over here and a Dr. B over there, and they're not communicating, and they're both prescribing medicines. It might behoove the patient to say, well, I'm taking this the thing for my heart, and I'm taking this for my digestion. It's just good to to get on the computer. There's a couple of sites on there that are very good to check for contraindications, even between drugs.
Okay, folks, we're going to get ready here to take our mid-show break, and I just want to remind everybody that just stay tuned, because we got the second half of the show, and we got a bunch of things that we want to talk about. One of them is a day that Dr. Kilday is going. He and another doctor are putting together a holistic show, and I want him to talk a little bit about that. And we got some other things, but stay with us for the second half of the show.
12:35 in the afternoon here on 90.3 FM. It's Helping Seniors of Brevard Day with your host, Joe Steckler. And once again, here's Joe.
Geez, I was asleep there at the wheel. I forgot John gave me the signal to start the show, and I didn't see him pointing his finger at me. I wasn't paying attention, John. I apologize. Welcome, listener, to the second half of our show today. We've got here in the studio is Dr. Kevin Kilday of the Holistic Medical Center. Got a phone caller? Okay, go ahead.
And, Joe, we have a caller from Palm Bay. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Kilday, I love everything that you're doing, and I've read your website, and I really love what you're doing for people with cancer, and I really wanted to thank you, and I was wondering if you would be at Palm Bay's Purple Palooza. It's an event for my mom, a community awareness event for anybody that has had or is still fighting cancer, and we love everything you're doing in the community.
Well, I appreciate that. Actually, I was just talking with my with the principals here about. Is this Joe, the one that's putting this show on?
Yes, Joe. Anytime for this.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we were going to get to it, but real quick, Joe has a terrific show coming up, or event coming up at his facility, Anytime Fitness on Malabar Road in Palm Bay, on Friday evening, October 18th, and it's all about alternative treatments of cancer. I'm going to be there. I may be speaking. I don't know yet, but he has a great story about his mom surviving cancer, and it's really going to be a good event. It's going to have a lot of vendors there that are into alternative medicine. And that's about it for that show.
Okay, thank you for calling in, and it's why we do the show. You got a question, call us. You got something you want to say to help other people, call us. Thank you for calling, though.
And that's probably a good segue to go ahead and talk about, because in addition to that, you might make it the weekend of holistic health. You can take in what you'll be talking about there at that event, but then on the 19th at your own holistic health center here in Palm Bay, you've got a whole event going on called Celebrate Wellness with Us, the health fair event, and it just looks like you've got all sorts of things planned for that.
Yes, we do. My business partner, Reverend Dr. Devin Mayer, and myself are putting on a health fair the following day on a Saturday, October 19th. And our event is going to be from 10 a.m. To 4 p.m. And it's going to be at our new location, which is on the property of Peace Lutheran Church on 1801 Port Malabar Boulevard in Palm Bay, actually on the corner of Claremont and Port Malabar Boulevard. And it's going to be in a separate building behind the church. And we're going to have some speakers there. There's going to be some vendors there. We'll be having CBD oils and essential oils, free massages. Also, my business partner, she's also a registered nurse, so she will be giving free blood pressure checks and also blood sugar checks. And I'll be doing some nutrition, supplement analysis, and see how people are doing with, their overall general health, and recommend some supplements for them. And you can talk with us, for free, for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and that's about it. We're going to be having numerous vendors there. I actually think Anytime Fitness is going to be there also, and it's just going to be very educational. Like I said, I'll be speaking there. Pastor Devin, she's also a great author. She has written over 70 Christian books. I mean, they're small books, usually 100 pages around there. They are available on Amazon. Her name is Devin Mayer, Mair, and she would also be speaking too.
And you guys have a nice facility over there. You're located on the grounds of Peace Lutheran Church. It's actually, if you've ever been over there, it's there's a building that's kind of like behind the church, and it's next. There's a food bank that operates on certain days of the week, but your clinic is in that same complex.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's a when we looked at it, we just fell in love with it. Prior to that, there was a community medical center that was there,
and you were able to take that over.
Yes, and so they had invested, the medical center, a lot of money in putting up new walls and new offices and things like that, but they already had a successful business down south, and they just decided to shut that one down. So it became available, and one thing led to another. So we decided to take it over, and it's 2,000 square feet with multiple rooms in it, about 5 rooms, and it's a lovely location. And we're there to help people, help them with chronic diseases, major diseases like cancer. I also just added an opioid addictions program to my website, and we're able to help drug addicts and alcoholics there also.
Yeah, it's all really about information, and that's exactly what Helping Seniors does. Kevin and Kerry, but. We had our first really big event about a week and a half ago over at the Senior Resource Center, and we had a huge crowd, and I think it went over very well. Mm-hmm. But I think that the purpose of the Senior Resource Center, it can do something that I've written about and talked about on the shows, and I've written about them in articles in Hometown News. And that's for somebody to be sort of a champion for seniors. We simply don't have that in this county. And, many years ago, a bunch of guys went aboard ships there out in Boston, I think it was, out in a hurry, and threw a bunch of doggone tea bags over the side of the ship.
Right.
And they said something about taxation without representation. And, seniors pay a heck of a lot in taxes. And I think mine are. And I think, what in the world am I getting from it? I drive around in Kenny, and my car goes through holes in the road. And they talk about road repair, but they don't get it done. And we're always talking about something else we can do instead of fixing what needs to be fixed, whether it be the body, the mind, or the infrastructure that supports seniors. But we're going to have an event over at the Senior Resource Center on
October 24th. So that's Thursday at 10 a.m. That is the next event. in the Helping Seniors Senior Resource Center of Brevard Community Information Series. And these are turning out to be great. We had a great one this morning where we were covering hurricane preparedness, so it was a lot of good information provided that. It happens on the, generally, if you just want to mark it on your calendar, the second Wednesday and fourth Thursday of each month, and it's free. It's open to the public. They're kind enough to provide coffee, all sorts of good, tasty things to eat. But the main point is the information. And what's really important is what Joe is talking about on October 24th, the 24th of October. That's the fourth Thursday of this month. We are presenting on open enrollment. And as you know, this time of year, you get your mailbox flooded with information about this health plan, that health plan. Maybe you should take this kind of Medicare supplement. All these decisions that must be made before December 7th. And you have that window from October 15th to December 7th. And this is not a decision to be taken lightly, because not only when we talk about prescriptions, we also have to talk about prescription cost prices. And everybody who deals with Medicare over the age of 65 also understands the concept of donut hole and things like that. And so understanding that your plan, which might have been a great plan for this year, depending on the medicine that you take, you might need to relook at that because something may have changed in what they call the formulary. All that kind of information is going to be presented at this. And we are so fortunate to have a very good friend of Helping Seniors, a gentleman by the name of Lance Jarvis. Now, Lance, you and Joe, you and Lance go back many, many years. We've got so many good television programs that you guys have done together. But he serves on Shine, which is serving health
insurance needs
of elders. And it's a great program because what you're getting when you hear from Lance, you're not getting I don't mean this wrong, you're not getting a salesperson's perspective. He is coming at it from we are here to help you find the best path for your case. And he can look at everything and what are your prescriptions? What are your medical situation? And then because he has the vast knowledge of all the different options that are out there, can make recommendations about who you might want to talk to about your Medicare coverage. And this way you go in armed as opposed to simply getting, and again, I don't mean it wrong because we have very good marketing representatives for all the companies, but you're getting like an overview before you go talk to a particular provider. So that's,
we're also going to have a couple of providers.
That's right.
That are going to be on the program also.
We're doing a panel. That's right.
It's a panel type thing. So it shows you pros and cons of a good and bad. And what we really want to do, folks, is provide information that will help you make the right decision. A decision that will help you.
Right.
And there are so many things that we're finding out. It's just, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier on in the show, but last night my wife and I were at a place eating a supper, and we saw some friends there, and a gentleman came over, and he saw me limping around, and he made a comment. He just had his knee replaced, but he had also been diagnosed with reflux by a couple of doctors locally. And when he was up at the Mayo Clinic, he told them about this, and they looked into it and found out he didn't have reflux. He had a tumor that was cancerous.
Oh, my goodness.
And they operated successfully and took the tumor out.
Good.
So, it's a hard call to make, but if you don't avail yourself of the information as available, whether you want to participate in a nutrition program, whether you want to talk to a holistic doctor to see what they might be able to do to help you add to the program you're currently in, or you might find out that the program is wrong. I can think of a person that my wife and I know. Possibly had she talked to a person like Dr. Kilday, it might have influenced her to do a different approach to her treatment on cancer. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much out there. And the other thing I wanted to mention about is finding and maintaining a primary care doctor. we're finding more and more people are calling the office and asking about how to go about getting a primary care doctor. That's a hard question, and if my information sources are correct, probably over the last 7 to 8 years, possibly as high as 500 doctors have left Brevard County because a doctor, let's say if a doctor is making $500,000 a year, and his circle of doctors is bought out by somebody else, and says, okay, and you're not going to no longer charge by a patient or something. We're going to pay you a salary, and we're going to pay you $200,000. And the guy says, hey, that's a loss of $300,000 for me. Now these are just figures I'm making up, but the point is, there is no one in this world. Well, there might be some that are going to take a $300,000 or a $200,000 pay cut and go someplace else and make the salary they made before. And that's why it's so important to go to these seminars and find out. It's just like there was a seminar presented by Bill Johnson and talking about long-term care and the cost and what it costs for guardianships. And there's absolutely no reason, folks, for you to go to one attorney and pay $12,000 to establish a guardianship, but you go to another very, very, very competent attorney and do it for $1,250.
Right.
It's whether it be a doctor, whether it be an attorney, or some other,
Yeah, I went to Dr. Kerry's last seminar he had with that panel.
Yeah.
And I say, that was really very, very good. They had like 6 or 7 people on the panel, and they, they spoke and they opened up for questions. And, even I learned things that I didn't know. I mean, these were legal experts, housing experts, assisted living facility experts, and moving experts, and it was just very, very informative, especially for the seniors.
Yeah. But when we talk about, I just want to throw this in, Kerry. I've been reading a lot more about federal assistance for low-income housing, and to build a however this biggest thing is going to be in downtown Melbourne, and have affordable housing apartments are $1,500 a month. That is affordable for a lot of people, but sure is not affordable for the people that really need low-income housing right now. Beat that thing up, hit it with a hammer, Kerry.
Yes, the radio guy should know better.
The radio guy should know better. But I think that when we read stuff in the newspaper or look at it on the internet, we have to understand what it is that we're talking about. Low-income housing is for people that are living on $800 and $900 and $1,000 a month. There's no way in the world they're going to be able to pay that affordable housing in that tower at $1,500, and they probably wouldn't let them live in there in the first place. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things that are wrong that we've got to get out there, and that's why one of the reasons why we formed Helping Seniors. Seniors need an advocacy. Mm-hmm. They need leadership. They need somebody, some organization that is going to call it a spade a spade. Say what it really is. Say what needs to be done. We have a commission on aging. Kerry, you go to those meetings. I chaired that thing for 3 years.
We
have absolutely accomplished nothing except getting some speakers to come there, and you listen to the speaker. And I remember one there, and the whole doggone audience was wondering what in the world that person was talking about.
Oh, I'm sure that can happen.
Yes. So I think it's so important that we know where to go to help. We have to figure out how to help people use these lower cost elements of care. You've been on some of the shows, Kerry, where we've talked about using the right elements of care. It could be maybe we need to go to talk to a person like Dr. Kilday. Maybe we need to go to a Mayo Clinic. But we have to be able to do these things too.
Well, it's what you always explain, and it makes so much sense, is that each person has to develop an aging plan. And the problem is you're going to have a plan whether you choose to make an aging plan or not. It's just going to happen. If you keep living, you're going to age. And yet the idea of getting your aging plan in place is so that you understand as things progress or as your conditions change or your needs increase in a certain area, that you sort of have already figured out how to best work within those constraints. And so the real value of what we try to do as helping seniors is get that information in the hands of people so they can go, well, you know what, in my circumstance, I'm dealing with this. Like when we talk to Dr. Kevin, he has 3 areas that he really focuses in on. He's helping people with addiction issues, but he's also helping people who are battling cancer. And then you also do things that help people with pain. And so each time somebody tunes in a radio show or reads one of the columns in the Senior Scene magazine or comes to one of our talks at the Senior Resource Center of Brevard, you'll see this pattern that we're trying to desperately get you information that is going to be valuable to you for your particular aging plan. That's the whole point.
Well, if people look at the September issue of Senior Scene, you can go on our website, helpingseniors.brevard.org. Look at the September issue, and there are 2 columns in there, one by August Felton,
yes,
and another by Mr. Best. That have 2 columns in there about financial affairs. You get sort of 2 approaches, 2 different things.
Right.
And folks, contrary to what a lot of people believe, if you don't need $1 million to go to a financial advisor. You can go to a financial person with a lot less money and have them help you put it into a package that will help you develop what you need to meet your needs as you age. And you just might be able to do a better job of what you're doing now if you take a look at it. That's why helping seniors is so doggone important. And I hope that the seminars that we put on over at the Senior Resource Center will help take the leadership in doing some of these things. Having said all this, we've talked about a heck of a lot of different things this morning, but this afternoon actually. But Dr. Kilday, any final last word? I say we've got 2 minutes. Now, don't take the whole 2 minutes.
No, I won't. But at Holistic Health Center, besides having this health fair, we plan on having a health fair / seminar. At least every 2 to 3 months. We're also going to be starting some educational classes on nutrition that will be free of charge, and but there are also college credits available for a couple of colleges that I'm associated with by attending these free classes. So that's all I have.
Website.
Oh yes, holistic. Yeah, my website is holistichealthcenter.us.
Say it again.
holistichealthcenter.us. And our company phone number is 321-549-0711. I always, in most cases, answer the phone. Otherwise, I will call you back as soon as possible. And you can see me by appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Kerry?
Yeah, I think this is exciting. October 19th, health fair event. You'll want to be there at Holistic Health Center, October 19th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then don't forget October 24th. Be there for open enrollment at the Senior Resource Center of Brevard, located Zon Beachside.
Lastly, folks, I want you to know that we're now over the 1,500 mark in newsletter subscribers to our monthly newsletter, and we send that electronically to people. And this past week I had something like 7 or 8 new people subscribe. So when you start getting things like that, you know you're doing the right thing. So I'm getting the music signal, though. The show is almost over. I'll just wind her up and say thank you for listening, and be with us next week. I think our panelist will be Barbara McIntyre, I think. Anyway, we'll have somebody here. I'll be here. See you next week. Bye-bye.